Welcome into Ride the Line. We have a bonus pod for everybody this week with a special guest coming up who we're going to intro here in a minute. But before we do that, make sure you guys check out Ride the Line, smash the subscribe button. Grant, tell them why they need to check out WSN.com.
Well, just like we got a bonus pod right here, we got bonus content, especially at this time of the year. The NFL draft is coming up about 24 hours from when we're recording this. We got the NBA playoffs going on. The NHL playoffs are here. It's just a great time in the sports calendar. So whether you need betting picks, you want sportsbook review guides, you want promos to get you some extra bonus bets, profit boosts, all that stuff, you'll find it at WSN.com.
WSN.com, the number one place for all your sports content, and Ride the Line, the best podcast in the sports industry. Welcoming in Breiden Fehoko, spent time with the Steelers and the Chargers in the NFL, was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school at Texas Tech, started there in 2015, was an all Big 12 honorable mention, and then his sophomore year had another good season, ended up transitioning to LSU, won a national championship with that 2019, probably the greatest college football team of all time. Would you agree with that, Grant?
It's up there with the Florida and Miami teams for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So we are pumped to welcome Breiden to the show. Breiden, how you doing?
Appreciate it, fellas, man. Thank you for having me. It's great. I'm glad we got to connect, and I'm ready to hear talk some good ball.
Awesome, hey, Tanner, man. let me ask the first question real quick, since you kind of posed it right there. Breiden, that LSU team, where do they stack up? They the best ever?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I'm trying to be unbiased here in the most simplest way, but I think we had too many weapons. I think the game, the difference of game from the early 2000s up until when we played has changed and improved so greatly. I think the speed of the game is so much more different, and so I think just in a short summary, that's why we got the edge.
Yeah, definitely, man. That team was by far, like, just watching college football, it was so fun to watch you guys play. So it is a pleasure to have you on the show. The biggest thing that, we got connected online through a tweet that you had about a jersey retirement with Shedeur Sanders, who's going to be one of the top picks in the upcoming NFL draft. You said, I played with 15 at Texas Tech, meaning Pat Mahomes. I played with 9 at LSU, meaning Joe Burrow, 2 of the most historic quarterbacks in college football ever, neither of which had their jerseys retired. My God. So I'm going to give you the floor right now, man, and tell me why Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter, if you want to include him, should or should not have their jersey retired at Colorado.
First and foremost, I think what they did was spectacular at Colorado, right? I think the turnaround in which they were able to do in the last 2 years with Deion there was impactful. I saw an interview Deion did last week during spring ball, right? And he said, I'm going to cut to the chase, quote unquote, we wouldn't be in this situation talking about Shedeur if his last name wasn't Sanders. And I'm going to counter by saying his jersey wouldn't be retired if his last name wasn't Sanders. And so for me, I just think, when you retire jerseys, you look at it from a standpoint of there's a kid growing up somewhere that wants to play for his university that's never going to get to wear that jersey again. That's never going to get to hold that title of the number 2 or the number 12. Travis Hunter, deservingly so. I think, with that winning the Heisman, I think he's stamped in that legacy of Colorado, fraternity forever. But you look at guys like I followed up with a video about like Eric Bieniemy, who's a part of Colorado's only national championship football team, the leading rusher if Colorado all-time history, Rashawn Salem. I mean, all these guys who, Rashawn just got his jersey retired, Lord rest his soul. But if it took that long for these guys to retire their jerseys, I mean, you look at the waiting period, EB doesn't even have his jersey retired. All I ask is what's the standard behind it? And, maybe not Shedeur deserves his jersey to be retired. That's not my choice. It's my opinion. I put on my Twitter, everybody's got opinions. It's like ass cheeks. Everybody's got one. And so that's my opinion on it. I played with great quarterbacks who don't have their jersey retired, and they probably will here within the next decade or so. But, that's my question. What's the standard behind retiring jerseys? Because to me, nobody's going to get to wear that number again, and it's got to mean something.
So I think my opinion, I'll let Tanner go after, because from what I've seen, the majority kind of aligns with you, that they think it's a little silly, for lack of a better word, that Shedeur got his jersey retired. The point that I made when we talked about this on our last show or 2 shows ago, whenever it was, and I understand that this is a minority opinion, but I'm somebody who naturally likes to look at the other side, play devil's advocate, see if we can figure out why it might have happened. So what I basically said was, let's just imagine we're 10 years ahead in the future. And Colorado is perennially a top 10 team. They're not a Georgia level. They're not like that, but they're like a Notre Dame, a Penn State. They're always there. They're always in with a chance. And if we get to that point 10 years from now, you could look back in retrospect and point exactly to Deion, Shedeur, and Travis Hunter walking through the door and changing everything. You know, they won one game before they showed up. They go, I think they only went 4-8 the next year, but they win 9 games. It's the best season in however many years. And it then becomes a case of, okay, you see the direct impact on the trajectory of the program. You also look just from a monetary perspective. Marketing is through the roof. Applications to the university have soared. Maybe they get a new stadium because they've got all these fans. And maybe Shedeur's having a good NFL career. So my whole point was, I think it's possible 10 years from now, we do look back at it and say maybe we're a little too harsh in our assessment, and it does make sense. But in this exact moment right now where we're living, I think it doesn't make much sense at all.
Makes no sense, in my opinion. When you look at jerseys getting retired, they haven't even graduated from school, or they've been gone a semester, right? Like, that is crazy to me that we're already enshrining these guys with their jerseys being retired. It's one thing to say in 10 years from now, okay, the program's taken off, the Deion train has worked out. Let's look back to, you know, where it started with Travis and Shedeur. But right now for me, it's just hard to picture them getting their jersey retired. And the last vision in my head is them getting dominated by BYU in the Alamo Bowl. So it's really hard for me to say, hey, Shedeur Sanders, he deserves to have his jersey retired. But Breiden, what was some of the feedback you got, like in the reply section, just people reaching out to you about that? Were they agreeing with you, or were they totally opposed?
I mean, outside of like the 40,000 people that liked it, I mean, I probably had like 20 people that told me I'm a fat slob hater. And so, it's hilarious. You know, that's one thing I do love about social media and Twitter is everybody's entitled to their own opinion. And I think Twitter, especially in the realm of sports, is so great because to me, it's one of the best apps out there, right? You can use it to one of the best tools you can, or it can hurt you, especially as an athlete. And just some of the feedback I got, I think a lot of people, one, were shocked that I played with, you know, Pat at Texas Tech and Joe at LSU. And then two, they were also surprised that those universities didn't retire those numbers. And, you know, when I told people, I said, you know, the biggest thing that these universities do is they want to give it time. There's a grace period, right? You don't just, even the greatness of a player just winning a Heisman, like Jaden Daniels just won the Heisman at LSU, right? Like, they didn't immediately retire his jersey. Like, there's a grace period. There's time to let things settle down, for people to appreciate the process, for people to appreciate what was done. And then you bring them back a decade later, maybe a little less than that, maybe a little more than that. And then you give them the due process. Maybe you build the statue. LSU has a statue of Billy Cannon. You know, you do these things like that. And I think it was just so quick. And I think people's reaction was just so like, man, you're a hater. Oh, you hate Deion, or you're this and this and this. And I wanted to get away from that because I wanted people to look at the facts, right? Like, when you retire a jersey, in my opinion, I feel like it's the greatness and the legacy you leave on the field. But in this new age, like, quote unquote, the kids say aura. Like, is that why we're retiring jerseys? Because the guy has aura off the field? Like, come on. Like, if you're doing aura, then I could name you 50, 100 guys who I played with that should have their jerseys retired at LSU and Texas Tech. So that was it, man. I think people, you know, reacted rightfully in good or bad and different. They reacted accordingly, and it was cool. It was cool to see that tweet just get so many likes and impressions, because I mean, that's how I am every day. I speak freely. That's how an NFL locker room is. You know, we always have debates every day, and you know, some things should be said out loud, and some things is kept behind closed doors, deservingly so. But I mean, that's just a little taste of what I like to say and how I feel things are.
Yeah, awesome. And we're pumped to talk about, you know, NFL locker rooms and how these quarterbacks are going to transition in the NFL, in your opinion, a little later in the show. But one of the biggest topics right now in college sports is NIL. For you, you started at Texas Tech in 2015, 2016, you were there again, and then you took your redshirt year. You didn't have free transfer, obviously, back in the day. Now these kids get to transfer whenever they want. They're making money everywhere. As a former college football player who played at the highest level, won a national championship, what is your thoughts on NIL? Is it good for the sport? And how can we fix it?
So if you asked Breiden Fehoko 10 years ago, what would you think about NIL? What would you think about players getting, you know, benefits off their name, image, and likeness? I would have said, I'm all for it. Let's do it. NCAA is $1 billion company. generates a ton of revenue from TV deals, ticket sales, merchandise, you name it. Please distribute that to the players. You ask Breiden Fehoko that question now, I think it's the root of all evil. I think it's becoming the NFL. I think you're losing sight of the amateur spirit, right? The reason people love college football is because it's so genuine, it's so pure. Players are playing for the love of the game, right? They're not signing these $40, $50 million contracts where you see in the NFL guys get that and they kind of take their foot off the gas pedal, right? People love waking up Saturday mornings, watching College Game Day, watching these kids play for their livelihoods, just play for the love of the game. I grew up watching Reuben Foster crack heads at Alabama. I grew up watching, in Hawaii, Colt Brennan take, 12-0 Hawaii to the Sugar Bowl. Like, I grew up on that kind of stuff. And I think you're starting to lose the sight, of these kids having a passion for the game. I mean, you look at the whole situation with Nico at Tennessee, and going to UCLA, that's become like crabs in a bucket, man. And it's become such a wormhole of like, this is very dangerous if they don't nip it in the butt. When you got players not valuing the value of a scholarship anymore, not having to pay for school and just, hey, you know what, I can go jump in the portal or who's offering me this amount of money, it becomes a very dangerous game to play with. And I think these kids are losing sight of that value.
Yeah, so I was having this conversation with a couple of my friends just the other day, actually, and I think the word that I would use, which aligns with a lot of what you said, is college sports are tribal. For fans,
I like that.
Fans, we can obviously played in the NFL. Tanner and I didn't, but Tanner and I can turn on an NFL game and we can root for our favorite team. And if they win, it's great, and if they lose, we're probably sad a little bit. But you can see I got the Virginia Tech flag right here. If I turn on Virginia Tech and they beat Miami, I'm not just happy, I'm prideful because I was a part of that. That's not my favorite team. That is my team. I was there. I was a part of that. I was at the games. My tuition money helped fund some of the stuff that the team did and the recruiting and all that. So to fast forward to this modern age we're in, like you said, it is just a professional league for 18 to 22-year-olds or 25, 26-year-olds because COVID years and all that stuff. But point being, it's like you go from high school to this pro league, and then you go to the real pro league, whether it's the NFL, NBA, whatever it is. And the NIL deals, like you said, they're getting crazy. Just keeping it with Virginia Tech, one of our basketball players, he was there as a freshman. He goes to Maryland as a sophomore. He's now at USC as a junior. It's like these kids are just hopping all over the map, essentially signing one-year contracts without real representation. Just like, hey, Dad, can you go and negotiate a one-year deal for me? And it's not in the best interest of the sport, its development. It's not in the best interest of the players' development. Like you said, it's totally out of control right now.
No, I a lot of people are like, and people have asked me this. They say, man, like, don't you want like the kids deserve money too? Like, coaches get to leave without, being held accountability, right? A coach can up and leave a program. Well, I say, well, the difference between a coach and a player is amateurism, right? That's what the NCAA is about. It's amateurism. If you want players to get held to a higher standard and you want these players to get started treating to being treated like professionals, then declare for the pros, right? Then change the age limit of when you can declare after college, like in the NBA or in college basketball, you can play 1 year and then you can go, right? If that's going to be the case, which I feel is an altering domino effect, which makes it more dangerous, then you're going to have players, opting out after 1 year of playing college football and trying to declare for the draft. That's just the whole the loophole, I feel like, of negative domino effects that can happen with this NIL thing if they don't really nip it in the butt. And then, the whole team dynamic thing, right? Where say you have like a Arch Manning and Quinn Ewers kind of deal, right? The team kind of likes Quinn Ewers. He's kind of been their guy for the last 2 years. But some booster out in Austin, Texas, paying Arch Manning $1.5 million, and he's got a Lambo. Like, money talks at the end of the day, right? Arch Manning has got to get reps in meaningful games, even though Quinn Ewers has kind of been the guy. And so things like that get a little dicey, especially in the heat of moments where Steve Sarkisian is like, I want to play Quinn, but somebody up there signing my checks and signing Arch Manning's checks, and Arch has got to play. And Arch is going to get his time, rightfully so. He's a hell of a player, not saying that. But situations like that can really, really spiral out of pocket if they don't check it.
Yeah, and my biggest issue with NIL right now, there's no regulation on it, right? Like it's the boosters out in the oil fields of Texas that are supplying money to the Longhorns, right? All these boosters all over the place, which makes it really difficult. So when I'm thinking about how to fix it, I would say you got to put a salary cap in. The money's got to come direct from the school. You got to figure out what that money is worth, the number for the SEC, the number for the Big Ten, whatever, a consensus number, what these schools are willing to pay. If that system was put in place, like a salary cap, make it more like professional football, would you be for NIL in that case?
I would. I would also put a requirement. I'd also put in like a playing time requirement, right? You have to log a certain amount of snaps, because if you want it to be as close as you can to the professionals, where, hey, if we want to pay these guys professional money, let's try to adopt some of the professional things they do, where it's snaps. Certain things you have to qualify within a contract. That could be statistics. For in college, I do a GPA process where you have to have a certain amount of hours you're doing in classes. Hey, you have to, if you're a 3 and out guy in college, you have to have a certain amount of credits before you can leave. If you don't, then you don't get paid the full NIL. Like things of that, right? There's ways to do it, and I think it was so dangerous, like at hand when NIL came, because it was just like, oh, we can give players money now. All right, let's do it. Like who can sign the fattest check to the fattest university and get the best players here? And you can regulate it. I think it's through GPA. I think it's through playing time. I think it's through requirements of the university, and eventually it will. And that's the thing with introducing new ideas, is nobody knows the right way to do it, because it's the first time. It's the first thing. Maybe in 10 years, maybe in 5 years, we'll see NIL regulated and it's going to be the best for college sports. But as of now, it's out of hand, man.
I think it really just came at a bad time too, because if you look around at everything else, COVID messed money up just worldwide. But then people also got the COVID year. There was free transfers. Sports betting came into the picture, and that's really played a huge role in just sports at all levels. So it's like you had all these huge changes at the same moment. And it's just natural. Things were going to go wrong when you don't come prepared. And the NCAA was not prepared. Institutions weren't prepared. That's why you're seeing so many of these schools hire general managers. We thought that was purely a professional thing. Now it's actually becoming a popular thing in college.
Andrew Luck, man.
Yeah, Michael Lombardi too. It's it's going nuts. And the craziest thing to me, going off of like the regulations you were talking about, kids want more money now to play in bowl games. Like Cam Ward, for example, playing the first half of the Pop-Tarts Bowl, not the second half. And that probably wasn't a money thing, obviously a draft thing. But if you're going to take the field in the first half, I want you to finish the game in the second half. If you're getting money to play football, I expect that to be throughout the entire season. That includes the postseason. So that's another issue I have with it. It's definitely, I think it's good for sports in a way, because the kids are bringing in so much money, but it's just got to be regulated or we're going to get out of hand, which we've already gotten out of hand for sure.
Yeah. I mean, you got kids like Nico holding out, right? When in college football have you ever seen a kid hold out? Like, that's insane to think about, And then it's, money's the root of all evil, man, but it's how you handle it that gets it done.
Yeah, definitely. So, you played with some great quarterbacks along the way. Obviously, Pat Mahomes, Joe Burrow in college, and then obviously we're in a professional locker room. So in your opinion, what makes a great quarterback? Because we got a lot of guys coming into the NFL this season. They're pretty highly touted, but there's some questions. Like we look at Shedeur Sanders. There's already character questions popping into Twitter right now as we speak, heading into draft night. So what makes a great quarterback?
If I can actually jump in and just add to this question as well, what makes a great transitional quarterback? Because there are great college quarterbacks who get to the NFL and they don't pan out. So what do you try to identify in someone that makes you think they're ready for the NFL?
That's two great questions, and I appreciate those questions. I think one of the biggest factors for me, right, being around really great talents, is how they control the room. You want somebody who, when the highs are high and the lows are really low, you want somebody to keep the yin and yang at balance, right? I want to go to war with a guy who, in 2017 at LSU, we lost to Troy, right? The lowest of the low. Like, people wanted Ed Orgeron out of there. Like, he wanted out of there. So what did he do? He went and got a quarterback competition that offseason with Justin McMillan, Joe Burrow, had them compete. And he told both guys were upperclassmen, right? Either one was going to start and one was going to transfer out of there. And Joe was already a transfer in. And they had told Joe, like, hey, we're not just going to give you the starting job. You got to come in and earn it. And so he came in, he did his thing, he controlled the room, right? He told guys, he's like, man, if I'm not the starter, if Justin McMillan's going to be the starter, I'm going to work, I'm going to gain the respect. But if he wins it, he wins it. Like, you want somebody you can go to war with that's going to be honest, that's going to just demand like the respect of the room. And they do that by their hard work. They do that by not talking. They do that by showing up every day. And then another thing I look at is how they interact with players, not just on the field, but off the field, right? Like, it's your quarterback. This is the face of your franchise. This is the guy that, like I tweeted about Jaxson Dart the other day, this is the guy you want your daughter to bring home to introduce to your father one day, you know? And so, you know, I would look at Joe, how he interact with people off the field, even Pat at Texas Tech, how they interacted with the janitors, how they interacted with the cafeteria people. Because everybody's got talent, right? If you're at the collegiate level, if you're a Power 5 quarterback, obviously you have some sort of talent that somebody out there saw in you, that has faith in you, that they entrust in you to lead a team to higher levels. And then on the field, right, I think the biggest thing that I look at is, number one is arm talent. Can they sling the rock? And then number two is, do you play risk-free football? Like, in a way, to me, is like risk-free football, in my eyes, is somebody who can mitigate the mistakes in the game. Can you keep us in the game even when we're winning, right? So you always hear the term of, man, you look at the Falcons when they lost to the Patriots in the 28-3 comeback. Well, they weren't playing to win; they were playing not to lose, right? Yeah. When a team is up in a game, as a quarterback, how do you mitigate risk-free football? Come the sideline, are you telling your OC, man, let's just keep running the ball? Or, you know what? Hey, they're in single high. Let's go take one-on-one shots, even though we're up 14. Like, these are the things you want to see out of a quarterback. And sometimes more than not, like, it's as a rookie, as a younger guy, it's not gonna turn out how you do it. But one thing I appreciate about playing with Justin Herbert, we came into the league together our rookie year, was Justin wasn't afraid to take risks, right? He knew that I was going to have his lumps as a rookie, and he knew, like, man, not every throw is going to be a dart. Like, he zips it now, but he just knew that if I can show and if I can get these guys to trust me and build that confidence in, hey, you know what, this guy's playing risk-free football, and we're going to take, like, the higher percentage plays throughout the game, I think that's what makes a great quarterback. I think those three characteristics, I know everybody talks about, like, can you extend plays now? And, you know, it's so cliche, right? Can you throw a deep ball? Can you do this and this? But I think risk-free football as a quarterback, and then how they are off the field and commanding a room is one of the biggest characteristics of, like, can you make this guy great? Because if people believe in you, man, and if people trust you, they're going to play their ass off for you. That's just basic football. That's just life, man. That's life lessons right there. And I remember at Texas Tech, Pat, as a sophomore, you know, he was in a competition with Davis Webb. Davis Webb was another NFL quarterback, you know, quarterback coach now for the Broncos, I think. And, you know, you look at how guys command a room at a young age. Like, you want to go play for guys like that, even if you're down. Like, I watched Pat and Baker duel in 2016. They put up like 1,600 total yards of offense. Like, I was dead tired that game. I probably played like 80 snaps that game. And Pat's coming to the side like, man, let's effing go. I got your back. I got your back. They scored, like, mind you, our defense was getting, like, turned out. Like, it was bad. We were a turnstile. Like, we couldn't stop a nosebleed in the desert. And, you know, Pat was coming off every time Oklahoma would score. He's like, man, we got this. You good. You good. Let's go. Let's go. Same thing with Joe at LSU, man. I remember we played Vanderbilt that year in 2019. And, like, it's Vanderbilt, right? 11 a.m. kickoff. Nobody really cares. Like, it's Vandy. Like, no offense to Vandy, but it's Vanderbilt. And, you know, Vanderbilt, they had Keyshawn Vaughn, and he's just toting the rock on us. Like, Ed O is, like, speaking in French, swearing at us. Like, I don't know what he's saying. It's hot. And Joe's coming to the side. Joe's like, we good? Like, hey, we're good. We're good. And those are, like, things kind of like I reiterated. I'm kind of a broken record now, but those are things that, you know, I think makes a great quarterback. And you look at all the great ones that have come before those two, they all share those similar characteristics outside of basic football talents.
So I want to jump in here. I'm a Commanders fan. So obviously Jaden Daniels kind of saved my football life because for the most, I think we won like one playoff game in my lifetime up until this season. So when you talk about playing risk-free football, two things, I guess. I remember one of the concerns going back to college was, I forget the exact numbers, but the Pro Football Focus, somebody did an analysis and they said 80% of his throws were outside the numbers. So they were worried that he was relying on the skills of Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas Jr., and that's why he looked so good in college. Then when he gets to the NFL and he starts to have a little bit of success, well, the Commanders are running a higher percentage of screens and short stuff than anybody in the league. So whereas people look at that maybe as a concern, you're saying that, no, this plays into his strengths of taking care of the ball and putting us in a position to win. And then as he develops, we saw what Jaden Daniels became.
So when you look at college football, right, first thing I noticed is how you said outside the hashes. The hashes in football or in college football are a lot wider, which means there's generally going to be more guys in the box. And so if I'm a college OC, if I'm a college quarterback, why would I attack everything inside the box in college football when there's so much space outside the hashes? I think that was a great job of Brian Kelly and that staff at LSU to get Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas, Kyron Lacy, Lord rest his soul, those guys involved outside the box. And then you start spreading them out amongst the hashes, then you get Mason Taylor up the seam in the middle. In the NFL, everything's more condensed, so everything's kind of a little bit more spread out. That's why you get more two high shells in the NFL to kind of keep everything, its spacing, its angles, it's all these things. Cliff Kingsbury, great offensive mind, one of the best, going back to my days at Texas Tech with him. Uses Jaden Daniels in such a risk-free manner. It's crazy because they added Austin Eckler, Brian Robinson. You have who's old boy from Ohio State over there, receiver Terry, Scary Terry. You have these guys, and they had old tight end from Philly over there too. Zach Ertz. You have guys that complement Jaden's style of play, right? Mobile quarterback, move the pocket, right? But they're not just depending on him to do so. They're moving the pocket, throwing back screens the other way. They're doing rollouts with sprint draws. They're doing, all these things to mitigate risks, to mitigate putting your rookie quarterback at such a place where you're depending on him to throw deep posts over the middle in two high shells. Like, come on, and I appreciate teams like the Commanders doing that for Jaden, allowing him to build consistently, just like steady. Then you know what? Against Cincinnati Bengals, 4th and 1, Lou Anarumo is going to run a zero blitz, and he hits Scary Terry on a seam on the outside. Things like that. You play around your comfort level. You play with your guys' talents. You build around him. And I think the Commanders have done such a great job of doing that with JD that he's just thriving. And I saw a video of him going to the facility yesterday, and he's running in there. He looks like he's happy. He looks like he's ready to go. And so, they have a good one for a long time there.
Yeah, definitely. And Jaden Daniels, the greatest quarterback story we saw last season. I wonder if we'll get one this season. And now you got your big board here for quarterbacks that you tweeted out. Jaxson Dart, Cam Ward, Will Howard, a little different than like a Mel Kiper who's got Shedeur number 1. So you don't even have Shedeur in your top 3. So why is that?
I have Shedeur at 5. I have Jalen Milroe at 4. I put top 3 because I saw Kurt Bankert put out his top 3. And I know Kurt, so I was like, okay, let me go ahead and put out my top 3. I looked at when I put that top 3. I think the biggest thing for me was I don't know these guys on a personal level, so I can't judge them on how they control the room, right? I can't see them as a scout or as Bill Belichick going in to go and do your formal meetings with them at the combine and seeing how they are as a person. I'm judging them solely on 1, their ceiling, QB arm talent, and 3, I think where they can end up in the draft and how their potential is going with that team. I think Jaxson Dart ends up in New Orleans. I think that's my opinion. I think in that system, I think he'll thrive there. I think he's in a situation where he can go in, and even though they have Derek Carr and Spencer Rattler, I think Jaxson Dart gives you the biggest upside as a quarterback. I think I saw a stat that said he had like the most play action snaps out of all the quarterbacks this year. Like most of his throws were play action. And somebody was like, well, how is this going to relate to, the NFL? Like this is unserious. I said, half the NFL is West Coast systems based off of boots, based off of nakeds, Nebraskas, stretch plays, play actions. That's how Kyle Shanahan, that's how Mike McDaniel, that's how these guys get their chunk plays in the NFL is off of play action. Right. They do it under center, which is going to be a transition. But everybody said the same thing about Patrick Mahomes coming off an air raid system with Cliff Kingsbury in college. How is he going to translate? And I think what you look at is, one, how is he in the pocket? I think Jaxson Dart navigates the pocket well. I made a comparison of, I said he has Josh Allen arm talent and Justin Herbert pocket mobility. And everybody was like, is that like a downside to Jaxson Dart? Like I said, no. If you watch Justin Herbert, like if he doesn't have any receivers, he takes off running. I feel like he's very efficient as a runner. I feel like he takes off when he's needed. Yes, I feel like he needs to slide a bit more instead of trying to run guys over, which I feel like Jaxson Dart tries to do. I feel like they're the same in that era. But I feel like they're shades of them that are very similar. And I think Josh Allen arm talent in a way where he's not afraid to take a hit in the pocket, and he's not afraid to move the pocket if nothing's there. If you look at a lot of young quarterbacks, and here's why I don't have Shedeur in my top 3. Shedeur Sanders was, I think, the most sacked quarterback in college football last year. But most of those sacks, if you look at it, were quarterback allowed sacks, right? Not all sacks are created equal, in my opinion. Some are given up by the offensive line. Some are quarterback given, meaning quarterbacks don't manage the pocket well. If it's a clean pocket, they might just up and run and try to create something, like just sit in the pocket. And I think that was one of Shedeur's biggest knocks for me personally, was he tried to make something out of nothing when he had great pockets. I forgot who they were playing early in the year, but it was a 3-man rush. They were dropping 8. It was just spot drop zone. Pocket was clean. It was developing good. They were just in 5-0 protection, double duel. And he had a clean pocket. I mean, it was empty, and he just ended up rolling out, and he gave up a sack. Like things like that you cannot do. I understand there's an urge, like I said earlier, people want like the mobile quarterback, the Patrick Mahomes break the pocket, throw long to Tyreek Hill type of plays, but those don't happen as much as people think they are. They happen in big moments, which lead people to think like this is winning football. But the high risk, high reward plays don't happen as much as you think. And I think he tried to do a lot of that this past year, which didn't make me a fan of him. But I still think he's a top 5 quarterback. I think, in my opinion, I think he'll go in like the early second, which is where I viewed my grade for him. But I think the most value this year is Jaxson Dart. I think Cam Ward is a spectacular talent. And then Will Howard, I think he's very underrated. I think when you watch that national championship game, even the playoffs, like the way he was dealing after that first Oregon loss early in the year, how he mismanaged that last drive time-wise, I saw a different Will Howard from then up until when they won the national championship. Like I saw a pro-ready field general take command of your guys, take command of your offense, and then some of the throws he was making. I mean, I know people were talking about like, well, he's got, these elite receivers. He's got one of the best freshman receivers since, Julio Jones. And, I've seen the comparisons, right? But at the end of the day, you got to remember somebody has to throw these guys the football. Somebody has to have the timing to put that deep dagger route in their chest on point in the national championship. And so I like Will Howard a lot. If I'm the Steelers, I think Will Howard's a great value in the 2nd or 3rd round, which is where a lot of people have it mocked. And I think the only quarterbacks to come off the board in the 1st round, in my opinion, are Jaxson Dart and Cam Ward. And I think Shedeur goes probably in the 2nd or 3rd, and then you can start trickling down everything from there.
So let's stay on the Steelers there, because obviously we got the Steelers jersey in the background right there. The Steelers are also the current betting favorites to draft Shedeur Sanders. I will say, so this is just something about me. I ran track, and so whenever I can translate that to sports, I think it kind of just gives me a different angle to look at things. And one thing that you said there, which is something that I've been saying for a long time, is take Shedeur's actual literal speed out of it. He has slow feet. And again, I'm not talking about how fast he gets from A to B. I'm saying his feet they hang on the ground a little bit. He looks a little, I don't know if it's indecisiveness. I don't know if it's not being cognitively aware of where he's supposed to be in the pocket at that exact moment. But it does feel like his feet kind of just hang around almost, and it gets him tripped up. And that's what leads him into a lot of the sacks that you were talking about. So I want you to give me, in your opinions, having spent time with Mike Tomlin, that locker room, Steelers have not found their heir apparent since Ben Roethlisberger retired. If you're investing a 1st-round pick in a quarterback, you're hoping it's going to be that guy. Let's just say it is Shedeur Sanders. How do you feel, or how do you envision that working out in Pittsburgh? Give me the scenario where he starts in week 1 and the scenario where they sign Aaron Rodgers and he sits for a year. It doesn't matter who it is, but he just gets some time to sit.
So if Steelers go Shedeur at 21, I think, and say they don't get Aaron, right? I say they go into the season with Mason, Shedeur. I know they have Skylar Thompson on roster now, and they're probably going to sign another vet minimum quarterback, whoever's out there on the market. I think they go into week 1 starting Mason Rudolph. I think that's who you're comfortable with. I think that's, and I'm just speaking from being 2 years in Pittsburgh and how they operate. Pittsburgh, and that's where I get the term risk-free. Pittsburgh is big risk-free football. We want to mitigate risk at all costs. No matter how special a rookie may be, there's nothing like live game reps, right? There's nothing like being thrown in the fire and learning trial by fire. Pittsburgh isn't a huge advocate of that, right? Pittsburgh is huge on development. Mike T wants his guys to develop trust. He wants to be able to know that I can trust these guys before throwing them into the fire. People are different. I'm not a coach. I'm not paid to coach. In my opinion, I like guys learning trial by fire. I played with Justin Herbert his rookie year. I watched him learn his first start, knowing 20 minutes before the game when Tyrod Taylor had that whole incident. Justin Herbert's first start was against the Chiefs. Marched straight down his first drive, score. Like, I like stuff like that. You're going to go through lumps and bruises as a rookie. In Shedeur's case, with how everything has been in college, I think there's going to be a lot on his plate. I think mentally he's going to feel like he has to live up to the Sanders last name expectation of prime time, of being in the spotlight. I don't think he'll handle it well if he has to start week 1, right? If he comes out week 1 and say his stat line, and he is the starter, and say his stat line is 13 for 24 for 140, 1 touchdown and a pick, and it results in a loss. Well, people are like already on this kid's head. You're setting him up for failure. You want this kid to have the utmost success, especially if you draft him in the first round. That's a huge investment. Like I said, I think you go into the season with Mason Rudolph as your starter. I like Mason personally. I think Mason's a baller. When 2 years ago, when Mason took over as a starter, he won 3 straight for us, went into the playoffs. With all the injuries we had, he stepped up. He was slinging it. I played against Mason in college when he had, James Washington, all those guys at Oklahoma State. Like, Mason's a hooper. In my opinion, if I had the choice to, if I was, Omar and those guys, if I was the GM, I wait as long as I can for Aaron. And I know a lot of Steelers fans don't like that, right? They don't like the Aaron drama, the whatever little retreat he went on to like open up his mind. I don't know, whatever that is, whatever it's called. But I think Aaron Rodgers gives you the best quarterback that will take a snap in a Pittsburgh Steelers uniform since Killer Bee's Big Ben. I think even though Aaron's in his 40s, he's a gunslinger. Gunslingers don't die fast. They die slow. There's a reason Jameis Winston still has a job. Jameis Winston probably going to throw 30 picks in a year, but he'll probably throw 40 touchdowns in a year. That's what gunslingers do. Like, they're not afraid to take risks. And at this point, with the window Cam, the window TJ is in, Minka, all those guys, they want a Super Bowl, man. Cam's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. I know Cam wants a Super Bowl before he retires. I think Aaron Rodgers gives you that window, and it gives you that Super Bowl window now. And I think personally that's why the Steelers, front office is willing to wait on Aaron Rodgers, because you look at the quarterback class now, right, at 21, realistically speaking, I don't think Cam Ward or Jaxson Dart's going to be there. And is Shedeur your franchise quarterback? Personally, for me, I don't think so. So I think you wait. You try to go with Aaron. If Aaron doesn't sign before the draft tomorrow night or whatever, maybe he'll hop on a Pat McAfee last-minute guest show. Who knows what he'll do. But in order to maximize like Shedeur Sanders, if he is your 21 pick tomorrow for the Pittsburgh Steelers, I personally feel like you need him to sit for a year and learn from a good vet, whether that's Aaron Rodgers or Mason Rudolph. And you don't want to throw him in right away, especially with like the AFC North, like how brutal that conference is. Like they'll eat you alive, man. Like Myles Garrett, Trey Hendrickson. I mean,
Travis Hunter.
Travis. I'm telling you, man. Like it's about to be Travis Hunter in Cleveland. It's about to be crazy, man.
Now, how do you think Aaron Rodgers is going to fit in with the Mike Tomlin system, knowing you have the Pat McAfee and you have the off the field stuff? Like, what is that going to look like if we do get that relationship?
Well, you know, Mike T's is not a fan of the tomfoolery. I'll tell you that. Like Mike T
he gets a lot of foolish receivers. I will say that.
And you know what's crazy is how he's able to keep them in check. Mike T should get a raise just off of who he's had in Pittsburgh alone in the receiver room and how he's able to keep them on a straight and narrow path. Like Mike T is one of one when it comes to like just having like I won't even say the word, but just having, you know, crash outs in the wide receiver room and being able to keep them on the straight and narrow. But no, I like what we were saying earlier. I don't like. It's hard for me to envision the Aaron Rodgers theatrics continue if he signs in Pittsburgh, because it's not just Mike T, but it's enforced by everyone in the locker room, right? Like the standard is the standard, and they always talk about that in Pittsburgh, where like Cam Hayward doesn't like Cam's the godfather in that locker room. Like he doesn't go for, excuse my language, but he doesn't go for bullshit. Like if you're not winning games, if you're not doing the job, like the team, the locker room will keep you accountable. And that's one thing I always did appreciate in Pittsburgh was from the top down, there was structure, there was order, and everything needed to be done a certain way. And that's why they've been able to sustain a winning record for all these years, is because Mike T sets the standard and everybody falls in line and enforces it. And I think part of the reason why Aaron hasn't pulled the trigger yet is he kind of knows that. I think he kind of knows like, hey, if I go to Pittsburgh, it's not going to be like my way, you know, like kind of like how he's had. I can't pull the theatrics I want to. You know, this is a historic organization, and it's backed by guys who are going into the Hall of Fame that are playing for that organization. And I would love to see Aaron Rodgers in a Pittsburgh Steelers uniform. I think he gives them the best option to win the Super Bowl this year. And so we'll see. He may just retire. Like I said, he's gone on these retreats where now he's woke, his third eye is open, and so we'll see what his future looks like.
Tanner's third eye's open, right, Tanner?
Yeah, definitely.
So we talked a lot about quarterbacks here, but you directly more dealt with offensive linemen, but I would say running backs more so than quarterbacks was kind of what you were dealing with there. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about another guy who just the other day has actually now become the favorite to be the 5th pick. For a while, it looked like he was going to be Cowboys at 12, then it was maybe Broncos at 20, then it was Raiders. Now it looks like maybe the Jags at number 5. So when you get a guy like this, Ashton Jeanty, we're talking about, by the way, coming off of one of the 5 best running back seasons probably in the history of college football, I guess, how do you envision him translating? Because a lot of people will tell you the easiest position to translate from college to pro is running back. Mm-hmm. And then also take me back to what it's like. How do you approach trying to get a guy like that on the ground? A guy who is small so he can disappear behind the line, but then he has the power to run you over and the speed to break away. What do you do with someone like that?
Shoot, it's hard. I tweeted this early in the year during the college football season. I said Ashton Jeanty gives me beast mode vibes with a sprinkle of 2016 Todd Gurley. You know, beast mode vibes meaning he's hard to bring down. He always keeps his feet moving, even through contact. I mean, you can look at the statistics; they speak for themselves. Like the yards after the first contact he averages is insane, right? And that was not just against Hawaii or all these small. He did that against Oregon, right? He did that against the top dogs this year. And then 2016 Todd Gurley, that wide zone when Todd was, you know, with McVay and the Rams, like how he was able to one cut, book it 30, 40 yards, open field. Like those were the mashups. Those were like the comps I gave Ashton Jeanty. I think he's a generational talent. I think with a guy like that, you got to hit him before he gets started. Kind of like a Derrick Henry, where people think Derrick Henry's like a power runner, right? He's 6'3", 250. Derrick Henry is not a power runner. Derrick Henry is a track star at running back. If you let Derrick Henry get to his 4th step in his runs, he will take off on you. And yes, if he is one-on-one with a safety in the open field, he will embarrass your safety. That's what it is. Like, he's done it. I've seen it in the playoffs this year. He's done it. With a guy like JT, you got to get him. You got to kill the engine before it gets started. You got to get a big guy shooting a gap. You got to get a blitzer free through the A gap. On a saw dog, a cross dog, whatever. Just to tackle him, take his legs out, cut him down in the backfield for a 2-yard loss, kill his confidence early in the game, especially as a rookie running back. Like, it's going to be hard in the NFL because in the NFL, right, like, guys know how to tackle. Like, and don't get it twisted, right? There's still bad tackling on tape, but it's not college football where you can make one guy miss and you can take off for 20, 25 yards. Usually if the first guy misses in the NFL, the speed of the game is so quick that there's another guy usually right there within a yard or two. I think he will do well. I think he will do great. I think in Jacksonville's system, if he is the pick at 5 for them, with the new staff they got there, especially with Trevor Lawrence. I think Trevor Lawrence is another good quarterback. I think he'll do well. I'm not sure how they fare with Travis Etienne there. I think this is the last year on Travis Etienne's contract, if I'm not mistaken. And so I don't know if you go with another first-round running back if I'm Jacksonville. Even as much as I like JT, with Jacksonville's history with, that first-round running back with Travis Etienne, like, do you spend that again? Even though JT's a generational back, that's my question is, like, does Jacksonville spend that again? That's hard for me to see that they'd go another first-round back in a matter of 4 years.
I saw that they might even go with Tet McMillan. So you got 6'4", Brian Thomas Jr. on one side, 6'5", McMillan on the other. Tanner and I have a years-long back and forth about the merits of the little guys. Back when Cincinnati made the college football playoff, I was defending them. Tanner said, "Get him out of here. This is not a participation trophy." He didn't want SMU in the college football playoff. We go through these battles a lot. I'm always the one sticking up for the little guy. But when we would talk about Ashton Genty and Boise State, and Tanner, who I agreed with, said it was ridiculous they got a bye in the playoff. But the one thing that stuck out to me was, if you go back to that Oregon game when the one you mentioned, there's a clip of Dan Lanning saying, listen to me good. The best player you're going to see this entire year is that little guy in the backfield over there. That was in week 2, I believe.
Week 2, yeah, week 2 or 3. Yeah. Yep.
So that was before he even had this national breakout. Dan Lanning knew, and he said, that's the best guy you will see all year. So that said a lot to me, knowing they were playing Ohio State and they were playing Penn State and all these other big teams.
That's big. I think when they stamped Ashton that early in the year, like, everybody kind of saw the breakout runs, right? Week 1, week 2, and they were like, this is Madden like stats, right? Or was he averaging, like, after the week 3, like 50 yards a carry or some crazy stat like that? Because, it's skewed. It's still early in the year, but people started to respect him, like, more and more once they saw, like, people watch Boise State, the smaller market schools. People don't watch him a lot. I'm a sports lunatic, man. I love watching sports, especially football. And so, like, I'm a huge Pac-12 after dark guy, right? I love, like, staying up, watching, like, it's horrible football, but it's entertaining, right? Like, you just see, like, kickers shank one from 26 yards out. But that's Pac-12 after dark for you. But, like, just things like that. Like, you get to watch guys you never heard of. You get to watch the McMillans at Arizona play. You get to watch the Jankees at Boise State play. You get to watch these smaller market school guys ball out on a national level, and they're not getting the respect for it until they reach that national levels of, oh, he's in the running for the Doak Walker. Oh, this guy's up for the Blitnikoff. Oh, he's up for the Heisman. And so, deservingly so, man. I wish he's one of my pet cats, man. I'm rooting for him. I think he's a generational back. I think he'll have a great career. They're going to really test him, not just in the running standpoint of how he runs the ball, but in his protection as well. That's one thing defensive coordinators, defensive players in the NFL, they'll always test young backs is, can he protect? They'll isolate you, put you on an island, put you one-on-one with guys like Derwin James, overslide the protection so that you're one-on-one with a Khalil Mack. Now your running back has to block a defensive end, Myles Garrett, all these guys. So I'm interested to see how Ashton does from the protection side of things in his rookie year in the NFL.
Yeah. Now I want to go a little broader. You played in the SEC. It just means more in the South, right?
100%.
How hard is it? how hard is it to make that transition from the highest level of college football even into the NFL, and then taking a look at a guy like Ashton Genty going from the Mountain West Conference to the NFL? Like, what is the hardest part about making that jump?
Physically, I felt like the SEC was a lot harder than the NFL. I will say that. Shoot. I mean, I don't even know if I'm allowed to say this, but we were getting Toradol shots up the butt in the SEC weekly, man, in my ankles, in my shoulders, my lower back. Like, I was getting a Toradol shot every game just because that's how physical it was. I mean, one week you're going against Jonah Williams and Alex Leatherwood and Lester Cotton, who's 360 at Bama. Then the next week you're going against Fred Johnson and Jawan Taylor. And then the week after that, you got Elton Jenkins at center against Mississippi State. So you got a good little gauntlet of guys you're going against. Now, Ashton, like you guys said earlier, the running back position, I think, translates fairly well to the NFL. I played with Jaylen Warren the last 2 years. I think Jalen's a phenomenal back. I look at how Jaylen translated to the league. One thing you can't take away from players is their physicality. I always felt like no matter what level of football you played at, if you were a physical guy, you were going to be a physical guy in the NFL. And that's one thing I always talk to when I would always talk to like the front office guys of the Steelers or the Chargers is if you're a tough guy once, you're going to be a tough guy twice. Like those things you don't imitate. You can't change that. If a guy's a fake tough guy there, he's going to be a fake tough guy here. And so I look at Ashton. I look at the way he plays. I think he's physical. He's not afraid of contact, right? I see guys that try to tackle him low. He goes lower. I think that translates for him. Playing in the SEC, for me, it wasn't a big transition because I was very thankful that I got to play against elite competition on a weekly basis. Now, may the speed of the game change for Ashton a little bit? Yeah, because the blitzers you saw in college playing against Hawaii and Idaho, right, that may have took 3 or 4 seconds to come off the edge on a corner blitz, that's going to feel like a flash now in the NFL when you got like Marshawn Lattimore blitzing off the edge on a weak side corner blitz. Like, it's going to happen quickly. So the speed of the game happens a lot quicker as far as, like I said, a protection standpoint. But from a physical standpoint, I think he's going to be light years ahead of where people expect him to be.
Here's a more just, I guess, a personal question about you. When you sit back, you said you like watching terrible football. You like watching Pac-12 After Dark, all this stuff. Are you able to actually just enjoy it? Or are you watching it like, why didn't they do this? This guy missed this protection. This guy blew his zone. Are you able to have fun at all?
Yeah. When I was younger, I always was like, man, why are they calling that play? Like, that's so bad. Or, man, that's like the worst tackling I've ever seen. And I'd always like make these comments. And as I've gotten older, I've just learned to like appreciate it because it's entertaining now. I shouldn't have phrased it as bad football, but it's pure football. Like I said, it's genuine. It's just like you kind of miss that a little bit because it reminds you of like like how I said earlier, like how NILs kind of hurt football a little bit. Like these guys are playing for the love of the game, man. Like I grew up in Hawaii and I grew up watching Jeremiah Masoli at Oregon. You know, I grew up watching all these guys like playing like the old Pac-10. And so we got those later games in Hawaii. And it was always entertaining to me because that was the closest thing we had to home. And these guys were like local heroes. And now when I watch it older, I try to watch it from a fan standpoint instead of like a football standpoint of like, oh, I want to put my hands on. I want to be able to control like what they're calling. Oh, why can't I just go tell this guy, hey, do this, adjust this way. Now I just sit back and enjoy it. I try to have my son watch football with me. Hopefully he picks it up, you know, whatever he wants to do. But it's great. It's great to just see the amateurism of like just pure football. Guys, they may miss a block. They may miss a zone. A guy may shank a kick. But you know what? It's like watching the MAC on a Wednesday night. Like guys just play. They play for the love of the game. You know, you got to enjoy that stuff. You got to love it because it gets to a point where like it becomes a job for guys and people kind of lose sight of like that true intimate passion and love for it.
Tanner loves the MAC.
I love watching the MAC. I love it. It's amazing, especially on a Wednesday night. You got to love football.
Oh yeah, definitely. You got Monday night football, and then you go into action midweek. Then you got Thursday. You got a Friday college game, Saturday, Sunday. You just can't beat football. It's the greatest sport in the world.
It is.
But Breiden, we appreciate all the time you've given us. We want to wrap with this. Looking at the Commanders last season, they were that surprise team. Do you have a team this year that could be this year's Commanders?
It's a great question. I think it's crazy because they were already a playoff team last year, but I like the Vikings a lot. I think JJ McCarthy's going to surprise a lot of people. This will be his true rookie year because he technically didn't play snaps last year. And so that's kind of why I'm putting the Vikings as like my Commanders with like, even though it's JJ McCarthy's second year, but this will be his true first year playing. I think they'll surprise a lot of people with how he plays. I was a fan of him at Michigan. I also think the Giants are going to surprise a lot of people too this year. I know it's kind of hard to hear that because the Giants they're in that division as well in the NFC East, but I like their defense. I think Brian Daboll's a great coach. I think he's a great offensive mind. I think with Jameis, Russ, and whoever they draft in this year's draft, I think they'll be set at quarterback no matter what. I think they've set themselves up in the offseason as far as like we don't have to reach for somebody we don't need to early in the draft. I think with Malik Neighbors there, they're set up for years of Justin Jefferson-esque type receivers of big plays, splash plays. And I'm interested to see what they do this year. I was there with a lot of guys in New York for a little NFL event we had a month ago. And they seemed like, man, they had a lot of good things going for them. Their energy was high. I got to meet some of their strength coaches there when we worked with some of those guys outside of the facility. And a lot of like the energy was like the vibes were high. Like even though they had the season they did last year, I think New York and Minnesota this year, for me personally, are my two teams that are going to surprise a lot of people. I think they'll both make a run for the playoffs this year.
Well, I told you I was a Commanders fan. So real quick, NFC East, give me the final standings. What's the 1-4?
It's for me. You can't, as long as, I mean, that old line is still intact in Philly. You go with Philly as 1. I think Commanders are 2. I think New York is 3, and I think the Cowboys finish last. Just in my opinion, Philly was dominant last year. Man, their old line's crazy, but dude, the Commanders were like. That fumble on the kick return in the playoffs really killed the vibe because, I mean, Jaden was rolling up to that point. But I think that's how I'd set it 1-4 for the NFC East.
I think that's probably right. I have the same standings.
Yeah.
Well, Breiden, we appreciate your time. If you just let the listeners know where they can find you if they want to connect with you.
Yeah. Hey, follow me on Twitter at Fehoko. I just recently put it back up a year and a half ago. It got hacked from some account in Saudi Arabia, excuse me, my old Twitter. And so all my socials are all new now. I've had to like restart from the ground up, but just slowly trying to build things up. Same thing on Instagram, Fehoko. Appreciate you guys for having me, man. It was a blast.
We appreciate you coming by.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, guys. We'll link all those socials down in the description if you want to connect with Breiden. And that does it for our bonus pod of Ride the Line. We will see you back here on Friday for our usual episode. Until next time, thanks for joining us.